Hey,
What's
how's it
up?
going? We're Crownlands. We're from Oshawa, Ontario. I'm Cody.
I'm Kevin, and it's nice to be here. We're live streaming out of ADA Studios today, which is Universal's new recording studio, and we're making our new record this week. And we
Yeah,
figured, why not stream in and say hello and talk a bit about what it's like being a rock and roll duo,
yeah.
two-piece
Two
band
piece and a lot of
in the
sound.
year 2022. So, big shout outs to our pals at Long and McQuaid for inviting us to talk to
Yeah,
you all right now. Hope everyone is enjoying, listening to music, learning about music,
yeah.
all the good Long McQuaid learning series stuff. So, yeah, I guess we'll do a quick intro. Some of you are probably wondering, who is Crownlands? Why am I learning from them right now? So, Cody, you take the floor.
Yeah,
Explain who we are, what we do.
totally. Well, as you know, we're a duo, and we formed in, I think, 2014.
Oh, I thought it was like 2015.
Yeah,
Whatever.
you know.
It's always shaky.
And we started playing kind of blues leaning, classic leaning rock together, and it was really stripped down. And as the years went on, we kind of added much more to our arrangement, and things got a lot more complicated. And we kind of leaned into our nerdy prog side. And now we're incorporating a lot of like polyrhythms, odd time signatures, wild tunings, and all this really fun stuff. In a way, I feel like duos haven't really explored
Yeah,
before.
like it's important to make sure you don't have a small palette to paint from, I guess.
Yeah,
And we
yeah,
started out deliberately limiting ourselves,
for sure.
especially on our first couple records,
Hmm.
of sticking with certain sounds that might be tested and true, right?
Yeah,
Obviously
like
being
tropes even sometimes,
yeah,
right? Like we were really into blues and obviously the masters of blues and rock. Um, and so,
yeah, like being a duo, you're never going to escape comparisons to the White Stripes or the Black Keys.
yeah,
That being said, it takes a long time to sound like yourself, and so I'm sure there's a few folks out there that are listening and watching today, wondering, how do you kind of like carve out your own sound, or how do you even carve out your own niche, especially in the Canadian music industry?
hmm.
And again, it just takes a long time. I'd say for us, our first two EPs that we released independently, at least the first one, Mantra, was like a direct um, decision to try and write consolidated, really concise pieces of music that
Yeah, but
had potential to get on like active rock.
yeah, but we kind of stepped it up, like musically in the in the complexity of the structure, from Mantra, because it was like really bare bones.
Yeah,
When we
like
first started, we made that first EP in like 2 days, and it
yeah.
was just like really simple blues riffs. Like I wasn't even gonna play drums originally in the band. I was just gonna sing, but I played drums beforehand, and Kev was playing drums with his foot. He had like this little kick
Oh
drum,
yeah, yeah. It's like
and I was like, well, I mean, I play drums, so I'll just like sing, and I'll be back here hitting this one drum. And I had a whole kit in front of me, and eventually, I was like, I'll just do the snare on the off beats, and we'll make it work. And then I just started adding the hi-hats, and then the rest kind of came
yeah,
naturally.
and then we're thinking about like some of those riffs on the early records. A lot of pentatonics, a lot of minor thirds that are getting bent up to that kind of like major tonality. It's like or being right where you're using we're thinking about writing a riff in a two-piece setting
Yeah.
using lots of chromatics, right?
Yeah. 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 And singing a lot of unison as well with the guitar riffs. That's kind of how we started out. Because I mean, I'm a self-trained singer for the most part. So like, especially back then, I would just sing what he was playing, but just like put lyrics to it. But before we get too deep into that kind of conversation, I'd like to kind of scale it back and be like, okay, so we're Crownlands. Our name obviously means something to people, in Canada, or, our name comes from obviously what Crownlands is, and what it's used for. But it's basically land owned by the monarch. Um, we believe it's stolen land. It's used for clear cutting trees, oil, fracking. A lot of indigenous reserves are on Crown land, and I'm indigenous. I'm Mi'kmaq, and we kind of talk about that a lot with our music, and we like to highlight the struggles of Indigenous people across this country and abroad, and kind of use that term as like a reclamation of the term for Indigenous people and sovereignty. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of get that through the door before we got too deep into the technical nerdy shit.
Definitely, I think that's a really important thing to talk about because, like, at the end of the day, that's what the music serves, is the idea of like raising awareness and talking about, what Crownland actually is, and the fact that most of Canada is Crownland, right? Which is a bit of a shame, but here we are doing our best to
Here we are.
make sure that it won't be that way after. Let's see.
Yeah, we're making sparkle prog about it.
Yeah, I'd say I've got a quick question here. So what song's written the fastest? I'd say like our earlier material we wrote much faster. It takes us a lot longer to write material now.
But, yeah, definitely. Because, like I said, we made our EP in like 2 days.
Yeah, our first EP, yeah. But now, like, obviously, right now we're tracking this song. We actually wrote this latest song. It's a 20-minute space prog epic, and that didn't take us as long as we thought it would.
I think it took us like a couple weeks, but we were all jazzed up listening to Yes and Rush and stuff. We were just on a kick. Sometimes you get in a mood and, a song comes together overnight, but sometimes it's a real slog and it's like months of just like, oh man, I don't want to hear that riff again, or like I don't want to hear that vocal again.
I would say like sometimes Leadfoot off her first record.
Yeah,
that was a riff we had written years and years and years before we actually tracked the record, and it just sat on the shelf. So I think a lot of stuff is when you just like start stockpiling riffs or like And then we'll say we've got a question for Rob Taylor. How do you guys get by without a bassist, and what made you decide to go that route? So ironically, I actually am a bassist.
He's an amazing bassist. Nobody knows.
The reason why we decided to stick with doing guitar and Taurus pedals, so like when I play live, I've got a set of they're called Taurus pedals. They're about 1 octave. Foot pedal synthesizer. It's basically if you see someone playing an organ and they're playing the bass with their feet, that kind of allows you to play fundamentals, just like simple walking bass lines. That allows you. So let's say again with White Buffalo, the bass line is like just kind of chugging down that. Let's see, and and then like the whole time, like I'm just like kind of like pedaling.
Yeah.
And so there's something to be said, I'd say, about just like simple stuff, right? Because like a lot of time, a bass player would be probably keen on reinforcing that fundamental, right? So White Buffalo is in the key of C minor, and so you just like have that pedal tone. And that's a song we really want to talk about today. That's been a song that has been really good for us. As our label calls it, the door opening track, which is very important to have when you're making complex music. So it's a fairly simple song, and I do want to talk about this quick concept about filling in harmonic space if you are just one instrument in a band. One harmonic instrument, right? Because Cody's singing and playing drums, and so I'm playing guitars and keyboards often at the same time. And sometimes you can't get away with the same chord voicings that you would normally be using if you were supported by a keyboard player or a bass player in a traditional band. Mm-hmm. And once you remove standard tuning and first position open chords from your musical vocabulary, you're often left with really exciting new opportunities to create new kind of chord voicings. And one of my favorite tunings is open C. And for those of you that are playing guitar and looking to fill in that space, maybe without a bass player, or just if you're looking for different textures and different chord shapes, I highly recommend this tuning. It's you tune your low E down to a C, your A becomes a G, your D gets tuned down to a C, your G stays the same, your B gets tuned up to a C, and your high E stays the same. So it is C, G, C, G, C, E. And that's basically going to allow you to do that kind of classic drop D. Just kind of like hitting those big chunky power chords with one finger on your low strings. And now your typical A triad shapes, that would be about in the middle of your neck, is now going to start one string higher. So if you wanted to play a major triad sound, let's say an E flat major, all you have to do is take one finger and you can just play the first, your top 3 strings. And that's going to allow you to play a traditional major triad, where the highest note is the third of your chord. So if you're wondering what a triad is just a 3-note chord, a traditional major or minor, which is found in most Western music. Now your minor chord is again that same shape as your A minor traditional, right? You're just going to move everything up one string. That's going to allow you to play. The great thing about this tuning is, let's say a traditional keyboard player in a band, your left hand's going to traditionally play octaves, right? You know, let's say if we're in the key of C, your left hand's going to play a low and a high C, and then your right hand is going to be playing a triad. And that's traditionally most keyboard-based music that you're listening to with rock music. That's what you're listening to. So, as a guitar player, once you open to open C tuning, you can just bar all of your strings, and you're literally playing a keyboard chord voicing. So it allows you to have a much wider range of notes with a much more ergonomic grip. So now if you wanted to play a chord of that range in a traditional tuned guitar, you probably wouldn't be able to without, stretching your hands into like a pretty uncomfortable position.
Yeah.
But the great thing about being able to use open C tuning is you can literally just move one finger and you can create a very wide, very large sounding chord. And then again, your minor chords, that same thing, right? And you can just grip it like that, and you can create a traditional fat chord voicing. So I'm going to go over the verse of White Buffalo right now, which is it's in the key of C minor, and we're going to be playing a riff in the time signature of 7/8. 7/4. Oh yes. And so Cody can talk a bit about like the beat and the groove of this song, which is actually pretty interesting, to be honest. It started out as a 13/8 groove.
Yeah, and then we kind of scaled it back. We chilled out, and we turned it into 7/4, and it just it was almost like it's like a punky disco beat for kind of defying the 4/4 tradition. And
like how do you make 7 danceable?
Yeah, well, you just play through it, really. And I took a page from John Bonham and just was like, what if I keep the 4 on the floor and I just keep it going, and I keep it going through the 7, and then I break for a fill every so often. And so I just Kevin played that riff, and I just knew exactly where the turnaround was, and I'd fill there, and then I'd come back in 4 on the floor, and just literally just playing disco just in an odd signature, and then I'd use my fills to kind of cover it up, and make it kind of interesting and more flavorful, going into the pre-chorus and then the chorus.
Yeah. So I'll start out. So the verse is basically just. It's built around 3 main chords, which is your G minor, F, and E flat, which again are chords you wouldn't typically be going to in a standard tuned guitar, but something that you'd often hear in, again, keyboard-based music. And so now your G minor shape is starting on your 7th fret, where you're just doing your 6th fret of your high E, and then 7th fret of your B and G strings, and then you take that major shape and you just put it down to your 5th fret, you move down to your 3rd. And that's just like a classic chord progression that you've heard a million times. I'd say one of the best examples of, again, like that minor 1 down to the 7 down to the flat 6, be All Along the Watchtower, right? It was just a classic 3-chord progression. Worked good enough for Bob Dylan, worked good enough for Jimi Hendrix. It's good enough for you, right? So I say there's something really, when you're thinking about writing music, don't be afraid to look at a chord progression that you're already a fan of and try and analyze why it might make you feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'll often do is, if I'm listening to a song and there's a certain lift based through the melody or the chord progression, a great exercise to do is learn that and then transpose it to a different key and see if it can still make you feel that same way. Because often keys will have a certain feeling, a certain color that might come to our minds. Anyways, and now we're going to play it in 7, so if you want to count us off, Code.
Yeah. 2, 3, 4.
So, that's like the entirety of the verse, basically. So again, so you're doing that G minor shape on the 7, the F, and then the E flat, and then there's just one little pentatonic lick right there, where you're just doing a basically just again E flat, pull off to the C, and then that higher. Just again, that's just like a minor 3rd shape that you hear in like. And that's something that I find is, again, those little rock and blues tropes that are a really great thing to embrace when you're trying to write a song. That's awesome.
Yeah, Grant.
We got Sticks and Stones. Nice to see you guys.
Yeah.
That's very cool. He was saying he was blasting the music in the high school. I love that.
Oh, dude, that's perfect.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
And so, again, just these little things. And then again, so that re-intro, again, you're just taking that E flat and sliding it back to the F. And that's the entirety of the verse. Other than there's this one, there's a little, I'd like to say like a clever modulation where we go from like that G minor and go into the chorus, which is like just reinforcing this kind of Mixolydian modal C kind of figure. We just take that whole G and we play every string on the 7th fret.
Yeah.
And then we go from 7
to 4.
To 4.
Yeah, that part's in 4, and then the rest of the chorus is in 4.
And so that was a lesson that it took us a long time to figure out until we worked with Dave Bottrell, who's the guy who produced our last record, White Buffalo. And he said, you can do as much prog as you want and as many odd time signatures as you want, as long as you have a chorus that people will actually want to listen to again and again and again.
and can actually like latch onto, and obviously 4 is the easiest time signature to kind of understand. So I mean, it just makes sense to keep the chorus in 4.
Yeah.
What
amp do I use to record with?
Okay.
So I use many different amps, as you can see behind us. Do a quick little rig rundown. Right now I'm running a wet dry wet using this an old Marshall Plexi. Often I'll use an old late 60s blackface Fender Bassman. I'll use my main one's from 65, which is just like a great year. It's the first year CBS was putting out the Bassman, so if you find an early one, highly recommend that. And then my wet amps are 2 sets of high watts. I've got a DR103 here and a DR504, and that's just like a 150 watt tube amps, and those are going into traditional 412s. And obviously, that's just what I do for rhythms and whatnot. A lot of the time, I'll go to smaller amps for doing solos and texture guitars, because I often find it's hard to make a guitar stand out when you're using the same amps over and over and over again. And so I'll traditionally use like 2 or 3 amplifiers. Yeah, hop back in, Code. I often find I'll use 2 or 3 different amplifiers when I'm tracking my rhythm guitars, just to get as close to my kind of a stereo live off the floor guitar sound. And then once I get those rhythm guitars down, I'll start experimenting using higher gain, smaller amplifiers for tracking solos. In fact, our first record that we made with Dave Cobb, our self-titled record, all of the guitar solos I used was this vintage little Supro amp with a little 10-inch speaker. And often smaller speakers will sound larger when you're recording guitars, just for some reason. You know, once you go with like a 15, you have such a wide frequency, and you're going to end up having to EQ most of that out to make it sit within a band context. Whereas if you're using smaller amps, they'll often sound like a recorded guitar right off the bat. And so, you know, a great example would be Layla by Derek and the Dominoes. And all of those huge sounding guitars are Fender Champs, which are little like 5-watt, 8-inch speaker guitar combos. And so there's something to be said about if you want to have a bigger sounding guitar, sometimes you go for a smaller amp. And then Rob Taylor's got a question. How did you find Taurus pedals?
How do you
I've been
find
looking
them?
for ages. You just have to keep looking. You know, if you find them, let me know. I'm always looking for them too. Taurus pedals are very, very tricky to find. And that's, you know, because it's a very niche thing. There's like Genesis used Taurus pedals, Rush used Taurus pedals, and we use Taurus pedals. There's not a whole lot of bands out there that are using them. Because there's not a lot of people who want to deal with playing keyboards while playing another instrument, which is understandable.
Yeah. Didn't the Police use them too?
The Police did, yeah. Sting used two
of
Taurus
them.
pedals. You know, I don't
Both
know how,
feet.
you know,
Both
just
feet going.
balancing on the old heels.
That's brutal.
Police at Montoya. Code, you've
Yeah. Sticks and Stones. Let's talk about that Les Paul. All right.
This is actually, I'm just borrowing this from my buddy, actually Austin Nolan from Long and McQuaid. He's been a great pal, so he's lent me this guitar. It's got a P90 in the neck and a Firebird in the bridge, and I'm just using it because it's the only guitar here that is an open C right now. I'm mostly a Strat kind of guy, which, you know, but again, my Strats are in a plane right now.
Flying above the ocean.
Flying above the ocean en route here, so we don't have any Strats here, which is a little weird, but it is what it is. And so, Cody, you got a question here to talk about beautiful outfits. You know, hop up, take a look at this fella.
Okay. Okay, inspirations. I mean, Freddie Mercury's like gotta be the top one for me. He's like,
for styling.
yeah,
inspirations?
he's
The
a
cat
legend.
suits,
He's
the
a
cat
legend.
suits.
And I needed a cat seat, so I ended up getting one made, custom made, by some dude in Toronto, and it helped me figure that out, and it's really, really cool. And I honestly just thrift everything I own. I think that's like the rule of thumb.
So here's a lesson for everybody. Again, if some of you are probably thinking about getting custom stage wear for your show, which is what we did. So take a lesson from Cody. Make sure the material is not see-through.
Yeah, I was pretty bad.
Before you get it made. That's always a really good one.
Yeah, I have to wear tights every time I wear that cat suit, or else it wouldn't be a PG show.
It would be a different kind of show, for sure.
It would be a whole different kind of show.
So that's definitely something to keep in mind when you're looking to make your own custom outfits.
Yes.
If anyone there is wondering about like the suits I wear on stage, there's this amazing suit maker named Jen McKinso. It's called J. Boyne Western Wear. So she makes these cool Western custom sort of nudie suits. Again, well, we're talking nude suits. Nudie Cohn, the suit designer from the 60s, who did all the Graham Parsons stuff, and Elvis's suit. And so that's who I work with for my custom outfits. Other than that, Cody is a thrift master. You know, We got the
Yeah.
Thrift Master and the Riff Master. I'm just kidding. Anyways, so like I want to go back into talking a bit more about the chorus of White Buffalo again, just so we can, again, so if you're at home, you're watching this, you want to know how you can write your own songs, or if maybe you're looking for some quick inspiration, I'd say try writing a riff for a verse in 7, and then when you do a turnaround. What is that? Is that still
4.
7?
No, that's 4.
Oh,
bro.
that's 4. So that's just kind of a syncopated 4. What do you say that's syncopated?
Yeah, because I'm doing like this thing with the snare with you. And then 4 is 4.
4.
And 7.
All right, so we can talk about that. Like again, the harmonic analysis of that is, so you're playing kind of, even though you're in C minor the entire time for this song, your verses are kind of suggesting that you're in G minor, which is the 5th of C. And a lot of the time, if you're thinking about modulating keys, if you don't want it to sound super cheesy like a Barry Manilow song, right? Those modulations, you just take everything, you just move up 1 fret, like, and then, right? That like immediately takes your ear. And so whenever you're listening to a pop song on the radio, and they take everything and they just move it up 1 fret, it grabs your ear immediately, right? And so if you want to avoid that and you want to have something feel maybe more rock and roll, and you don't want to go with super Barry Manilow, you just go with the 5th. And so basically I'm playing in G, and then the chorus goes into just a big C, a C major triad. And the reason why we're in C major, even though we're technically C minor, is you're letting that open E ring out, so you have that major 3rd there. But then you immediately take that borrowed chord, that E flat, which are these like, and you have these beautiful extensions there. And you can get these very beautiful, lush, complex chords with a very ergonomic grip, right? Again, all I'm doing for these big suspended 9 chords, I'm just playing what would traditionally be like a power chord shape in a drop tuning, where I'm just fretting the bottom 3 strings. I'm my low E, my A, and my D, but then I'm letting all the strings ring out, again, to fill that space without resorting to a fuzz pedal and an octave pedal, which is traditionally, again, if you're playing music in the context of a rock duo, the easiest way to fill in that low end and create a fat sound is to play a monophonic line, which is 1 note at a time, right? And play very simple lines, right? Simple riffs, just to create the most impact. Yeah. Whereas another way to do that, again, if you have the ability to score a Taurus pedal and be able to play the root underneath, so that way you have a much larger low end, is then you can fill in that space out by playing I'd say like more complex chords, right? Where, again, when I say complex, my grips are very simple, right? Because I'm stuck playing a bunch of other stuff at the same time. Yeah. But again, if you're looking for those more interesting chords, don't be afraid just to take your guitar, start messing around with your tuning pegs, and then seeing what comes out of it. Because that's how most of our Crownland songs have kind of shown up, where I'll just kind of mess around, and Open C's a big one for me. Yeah. Dadgad's a big one for me, which is D-A-D, G-A-D. And then Double Drop D, which is known as the Neil Young tuning. And like I've got a couple other guitars that I definitely want to go over that. But I just want to, again, like finish the White Buffalo, because that is what we promised when when we've been talking about doing this live stream, was talking about how do we do White Buffalo live. And so again, the chorus is, you just have this big C, E flat, back to the F, and then the C again to the E flat, to that big suspended B flat, and I'm letting that E ring out. And then you just go back and you chug just those power chords, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. And then we're back into that 7 figure. And that kind of funky pickup is a B flat, which is, again, I'm just fretting the 10th fret of my top 3 strings. And that leads you, that B flat is a perfect anchor point to get back to your G. Because again, your B flat is your third of your G, or your minor third of your G. Yeah. So it's, again, just remembering like to use chord tones and whatnot.
And that last note lands on the 4th beat of the last bar of 4 leading into the 7. So the riff picks up right on the 1 of the 7.
Oh, see, that's why you get the drummer to talk about the rhythm, the guitar player to talk about the harmony. So let's count that out. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7. So cool. I actually do my fills on the 6th and the 7th beat of the second bar of 7 that comes in, and that's kind of how I get away with playing just straight through it. I just pretend that it's like, oh yeah, this is fine, and then it kind of goes on a little too long for it to be 4, but people are still grooving because that 4 on the floor is happening, but then I kind of give them a little taste of, oh yeah, this isn't a weird signature, I guess. Interesting. What is our favorite song to play live? I would say Context.
That changes every day.
Probably my favorite.
It changes every day for me, but I think today I'm gonna say Sundance because I get to come up and see this cute dude.
It's funny. Cody says it changes every day, but today it's Sundance. It's always Sundance.
It's not always Sundance.
It is always Sundance. And then Liam's just asking what drums and cymbals you use.
Oh man, okay. Well, I have so that stainless steel kit you see there that I'm rocking is a blue and olive badge 70s Ludwig kit. It's completely stainless steel save for the 2 concert toms, which are just reskinned, refurbished by Shaw Percussion. They were also Ludwig Ludwig drums. They're from the 90s though, and they have wood shells. So I just kind of wrap them up to kind of make it all matchy.
You've pretty much always been a big Ludwig kind of
person,
I
played Ludwig my whole life because my dad was like big on Ludwig. So for those of you who don't know, I played drums my whole life since I was like a year old. My dad was a drummer before me. Fantastic drummer. Taught me a lot. But he loved Ludwig, so of course I loved Ludwig as well. It just kind of happens, you know. I'm sure you have the same thing.
Your emotional growth ended when you started playing drums.
So yeah. As far as cymbals are concerned, I'm strictly a Zildjian dude. I love Zildjian. And I have some 13K master sounds. They don't make them anymore. They're pretty rare.
That's like your signature hi-hat sound.
That's my signature hi-hat sound. That's why they're so high and they really cut. I love doing open hi-hat stuff. Just so much fun. And then I have a 17 and 18 Zildjian Ks series.
Most of your cymbals are.
They're all Ks save for my splash. And then I have a 20-inch K series ride, and then a 10-inch A series splash. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and I actually have so I have my tom sizes go from 8, 10, 12, 13, 16, and then I have an 18 double floor tom that I honestly never do because it's too much to turn while I'm singing. It's just easy to just have the one there and just kind of sub out other drums for that other hit that I would need. Yeah, it's basically the kit. And then I have chimes, and actually I just picked up a Malacat, which is fantastic.
From Long and McQuaid.
Yeah, from Long and McQuaid.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to start incorporating
So what is a
that.
Malacat, Cody?
So Malakat's basically like a fancy way to say MIDI controller.
Right.
And you can plug in like
It's-
any sort of
But it's like
brain
a
to
it's
it.
like a MIDI vibraphone basically,
or yeah, like a MIDI
for all like tuned percussion.
it's all tuned percussion stuff, but you can really sample anything. But I think I'm gonna do some like marimba stuff and like xylophone stuff and like tubular bells, all those things that would be too heavy to bring on tour with us. It's really fancy to
Yeah.
have it all in one place and it's all there. So yeah, it's a whole new world.
Yeah, it's again, it's another thing about being a duo that has kind of helped us is a lot of the bands we take influence from are not necessarily duos. Obviously,
Yeah, no.
you know, again, we have great respect for
Yeah, immense respect.
yeah,
the,
for you know, for Royal Blood and you know, Death from
And,
Above,
yeah. The White Stripes, of
Black
course.
Keys, all those guys, right?
Yeah.
But we're kind of trying to pull from basically being a two-piece prog band, right?
Yeah.
Like taking influence more from 70s Genesis
Yeah.
or
And hell.
or Rush.
And even honestly, I'm a big fan
Yes.
of like world music and stuff. I've studied African, West African hand drumming and Afro-Cuban drumming on kit for like 5 years.
So like, how do you take that and make that work in the context of a rock song? Like,
Yeah,
like,
totally.
you know?
And I mean, also Indian music too. Like I
Yeah.
play tablas too in our
Oh,
set,
yeah,
and that's
that's a
also
great
part of my kit.
Well, that's a great example. Yeah, Inner Light uses
Inner Light uses tablas, and so does the Oracle.
the Oracle. Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, they're just really hard instrument to play.
Yeah, and so I think that's something that's like another great thing is how do you take
Those concepts.
take
fit
those
it
concepts
into
and
Western
apply that to
music.
Western music. Yeah.
Right.
And so Inner Light's a great example where again it uses open C tuning, and if you think about the sitar, where you have one melody string and then a bunch of other droning strings, right, that resonate sympathetically. And so when you take a tuning, again, like open C, it lends itself very well to playing like those harmonic minor scales, letting other strings ring out and filling in that space, right? And so, you know, like... And then you can get really clever and just let all the strings drawn out, and you could create something that sounds like more than just one instrument, right? Right, and it's like, you know, again, taking influence big time where we were listening to Nusrat
Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, yeah. He's an incredible singer, incredible artist, and his band is unreal. So, you know, we're just listening to a lot of that.
Yep. Yeah.
And like a whole bunch of other wicked players.
Yeah, so it's some great inspiration to go and find, right?
Yeah.
From
It's
music that isn't necessarily music you listen to
yeah,
every day.
Well, it's honestly my favorite kind of music. I like it even more than rock.
Look
There
at
you
this
go.
guy, you know, like, too cool for rock and roll. Right?
But it's cool to take that and incorporate, you know, those things in your own way and kind of take your own, give your own spin to that kind of those rhythms, you know.
Yeah. Oh,
And
totally.
reinterpret it. It's
Oh, totally.
really cool.
Yeah, and then for also, you know, cool little rhythms where, you know, again, if you're trying to write something in 7, I struggle at writing 7. My brain says 5.
Yeah,
That's my go-to
so of course,
odd time signature.
we needed to put 5 in Inner Light, of course.
Yeah, where it's like, yeah. You know, I think that's just like a very simple riff where I'm borrowing my G and my D string, creating a power chord shape, and I'm put on it. You want to count this for me?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So I guess I'm stressing the first, third, and fourth beat, right?
Yeah.
So what would make that 5? Is that 5/4 or is that 5/8?
That's 5/4 because then it goes into 7/8.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's there's like compound time going on in that.
So I'm learning stuff about our own music. So
Here
it's
you go.
Again, so, you know, as a guitar player, a lot of the time, I'm not counting. I'm feeling.
I do
right?
all the counting.
That's you know, it's
I love-
important to get an
love it.
accountant.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely something that is worth. You know, again, like thinking about like how we collaborate and how we write music together is often I'll just come out with like the stupidest thing I can think of, and then I'll just go to what time signature is that?
And then
You
we'll
know?
prop up a rhythm skeleton around that.
Yeah, like, I'm trying to think what's another weird time signature song.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
dude.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is 13.
How would you count that?
1, 2. Here you go.
1, 2, 3,
You just
4.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
And then that's in 6, right? 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And
Yeah, and then you go into the other bit.
what am I doing? Like, so again, like so that's an excerpt
worry about it.
from the Oracle, right? So again, when you're trying to write complex music, what works for us might not work for you. But when you're trying to write something and that's in 13, I didn't think to myself, I'm gonna go ahead and write something in 13.
He just did what came naturally
Yeah.
to him, and he's like, what is this?
Yeah. Actually, the day we met David Bottrell to work on this record together, we played that riff, and I was like, "Yeah, that's the 7/8 part." And he looks at me, he's like, "That's in 13. You can't even count your own songs." And I was like, "Oh, I'm in some real hands now." And so again, I highly recommend turning your brain off and letting your fingers do the work, and
But then
then finding
also-
yourself a Cody who is able to recontextualize the music for you in a way that like other people are going to be able to understand. That's always a really good thing. So you know the knowledge that I have about harmony paired with Cody's knowledge about rhythm allows us to kind of make the music that we want to hear, right? Sometimes you know, you don't have to do everything yourself. I find that's like a big trend these days.
Yeah.
You see a
It's
lot
like,
of
"Look
people
what I
that
can
have to
do.
do. You know, you see a lot of, you know, look at Tame Impala, it's one
Right?
guy, you know,
He's
the
awesome.
classic meme, right? But
He's awesome.
I find just because of the pandemic of the last 2 years, a lot of people are just like creating all the music themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like, you know, again, just to get that collaboration, sometimes you need that energy in the room. And so I'm very
Definitely.
lucky. I've got you, baby.
I've got you too.
Um,
And yeah, as far as like vocals are concerned, honestly, like I'm not like I slave over my vocals, and I'm like really intense about the melodies and stuff, but I'm not sitting down with like, you know, a circle of fifths being like, this is what I gotta do. I just kind of feel it out.
how do you warm up? Like what's your technique?
Yeah, well, I mean, I start by stretching actually, you know, like for the longest time I
Like-
didn't.
Like
Literally just like this. Just
Oh,
like just simple stretches.
take a look, everyone. This is some serious stretching. Right now.
And you got to release all the tension from your arms, because all the tension that you keep in your body just kind of builds up. And once you get your throat tight and the muscles around your voice box are tight, you kind of sound like this, and it's like hard to make anything open and free and resonant.
Unless you're Bob Dylan.
Unless you're Bob Dylan.
Then you want the nasal
But
tightness.
usually you want to loosen up, and so I spend a while warming up, and I like, you know, I stand up and I you know, bend in half, basically just like let my torso just kind of hang down, and
Okay.
my hands to the ground, and just open up the jaw.
Do you do like yoga?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do yoga, but mostly it's just like getting simple sounds out without trying to get sounds out. So like when I'm hanging upside down, I just do like simple like ma vowels and like open vowels up, and not trying to sound good or anything, but just trying to relax and remind my body that it can make those noises without trying, you know?
Would you ever record a song upside down?
I mean, why not? That'd be fun to try it at least, because like when there's no tension is
Do you
when
find it like your
it's the
voice feels
easiest.
different?
Yeah, it feels great. Like you don't have to try, and everything's there, right?
Interesting.
But like after doing that and like some scales and some buzz rolls, and stuff like that. My voice is feeling good. And then I just kind of go in for it. And obviously there's a lot of technique, with belting, and there's a lot of stigma around belting and how, often classic trained people will say like belting is bad for you. But I mean, if
what is belting for those that are probably watching this being like,
basically,
what is like vocal belting?
Belting in a rock context is usually like a glottal compression.
All right, and so what's glottal compression?
So the glottis is this thing like in here. There's like 32-ish. There's like 30 something muscles in your voice box alone, and like a lot of people don't know that when they start singing. There's a lot of discomfort, and it's really
Right.
strange.
Yeah, I know. Like when I sing, like I'll feel like that stress like right on my the bottom part of my throat.
Yeah, so you'd warm up to get rid of that stress.
Right. Is that where the glottis is, or is it
No,
closer
it's like right up here. It's like right in your right around here.
Well, thanks to glottis.
Thanks. But basically, what you're doing is you're kind of keeping air at the bottom of your throat. It's almost like you're holding your breath to sing.
Right.
It's like almost like you're holding your breath, but it's not. It's so the thing about singing is it's so subtle that it's really hard to teach. So get a professional teacher. Don't listen to me, folks.
Well, no, you started out. Was it Ken Tamblyn? Was like
yeah, I
the
started
vocal...
doing this like online thing like years ago.
And how did that work out for you?
It went great until I actually got like a teacher in person. And when I started getting lessons in person, like literally like last summer, I was doing so much wrong. Basically, I was singing with too much power. I didn't need to sing as much as hard as I did. And really, the secret about belting is that you're not singing hard at all. You make it sound like you're singing hard, and you open the mouth up, like.
When you say up, like, you mean like your upper palate?
No,
kind
no,
of
no.
thing,
So
or...
your upper palate raises,
Yeah.
like in the back,
And
then you're gonna want to drop your jaw, relax everything. Drop the tongue, and just let it chill at the bottom of your mouth, and then you push from your diaphragm. If you're, well, you don't want to say, sorry, I'm not going to say push. You don't want to push, but like it's coming from your diaphragm.
Right, but that's where you want the power to come from, like
yeah,
lower in your body.
Yeah, and so like technically, that's what your muscles are going to be doing somewhat. And then psychologically is the other half of the battle with belting, where like, you have to imagine being on top of the note, coming down onto the note, kind of landing like a plane.
Interesting,
Yeah,
right?
so
Because
there's
I
a lot.
often like a lot of the time vocalists
up.
like you scoop up. What
Yeah.
you want to do is you almost
Like I've done that so many times, and like in sessions, live even, like it happens. But like you want to aim to just be like right there.
right. And how do you do that? How do you make sure you're not sharp? Because I find a lot of the time it's more pleasant to the human ear.
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing, right? When you're playing a guitar and you're playing a solo, right? You're bending up to a chord tone, right? So like, do you find it's more dangerous to try and sing right on top because then like you might end up being sharp? Or like, is that something you worry about? Or?
Yeah, so what do they call those? I think they call those like target notes or whatever. Like it's hard. You have to hit the target. You can miss the target. It's easy to do that. Basically, what you do is you just sit down either with a piano or like or with a teacher or with a scale of some sort, and you just practice and you just get that relative pitch as close as you possibly can so that you can land that every time.
Right.
And it's really, there's nothing else that it comes down to than hard practice and getting the technique right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So cool. Thanks. I mean, I feel like I'm learning a lot about singing right now. I don't know much about singing, so Liam says, "Will there be a new album out soon?" I'm gonna say yes. We're
doing that
we're
right
working
now.
Really hard right now in the studio.
We're literally in the studio with the amp set up.
Yeah, we're
ripping guitars.
I'm really excited about this record. I think it's to me it feels it's already the best thing we've ever made.
Yeah, it's hands down like the best drumming that I've ever laid down.
Yeah.
Some gnarly stuff going on between Kev and I.
Yeah, I'm really excited
It's a journey.
about it. Yeah, it's I would say, if you like context and the Oracle, it's kind of like a lot of this record's kind of just taking that logical next step from those longer, more conceptual pieces.
And it's kind of amping it up even more.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Oh, I can't wait. I
So-
seriously can't wait.
What else do I want to talk about? Right, I want to like loop back again when we're talking about songwriting, arranging music. I could talk about this all day. Again, I literally, I truly could. So if anyone, if you're watching this, you're enjoying it, you're hearing any insights, message us on Instagram.
Yeah, please.
Do anything like that.
Yeah.
I can talk about music all day and arranging for the guitar specifically using alternate tunings.
Yeah.
That is my jam. So I'd love to, if anyone has any questions.
You reach us at Crownlands Music on any platform. That's us.
Yeah, that's us. Cody B _CL, that's me. I'm just kidding. Again, we want to think about the bridge of White Buffalo, because we haven't talked about that, where it's also in 7, and it's using the exact same chords as the verse. How do you make the exact same thing you've heard for the last 3 minutes sound new? You can just play, literally, instead of going... You can just arpeggiate it, and all of a sudden you have a beautiful little melody, right? Right, the only difference then is that 15 or is that still 7? I think it is just still 7, right?
Yeah.
So we just have one more chord where you go from the B flat major to a C major, where you're just going from the 10th fret to the 12th fret using that same simple bar shape where you're creating, again, the same thing. If you're just arpeggiating those 3 chords on a piano, it's exactly the same. And again, so that's how you can create an entire new section using the same chords as another part. It's just simple things like arpeggiate it or play it in a different rhythm or try it in a different time signature.
Yeah.
And, the masters of that would be Rush, right? Where they would take a riff in 4. And how did they make it in 7? They just dropped the last beat of every other measure, right?
Yeah.
So instead of 4 plus 4, it's just 4 plus 3. That becomes 7. And so that's like a really classic trick when you're trying to like write new riffs, where I'm trying to think of any time we've done that specific thing. Or just adding a beat to make it 15, right? Whereas, again, Inner Light, where it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that, that compound between the 7 and 8 becomes 15. And then in the 5. Back into 7, right? And so when you're writing a riff, don't be afraid to add a note or drop a note just to create something, or add a beat or drop a beat to create a whole new kind of sound, to create a whole new kind of part of a song. Yeah, exactly. So that's something that has served us really, really well when we're trying to write the music that we want to hear.
Yeah, because it's often not in 4. Whatever comes natural to us is in a weird time signature, and we're like, yeah, that feels right. That just sounds right.
Yeah, again, it's the same thing, right? Whereas different vocalists will have a different range that fits them best, right? I find, Bob Dylan, most of his songs are in G, probably because he liked playing his D harmonica, right? So it's like sometimes you just find what works for you and you embrace that. And again, for us, it's definitely been those odd time signatures,
open tunings,
and not being afraid of those pedal tones, right? Where a pedal tone is like you're just kind of consistently like droning on like one note as you're playing chords over it. And again, that same thing where I've got that C minor tonality all throughout Inner Light, but I've got that, and that so again, that's just like my pedal tone is that low C, right? And so again, I wouldn't be afraid of understanding how pedal tones can really help you fill in that sound, and like creating the sense that there might be more than just one guitar happening. I'm trying to think if there's another great example of any pedal tones. I'm going to switch guitars so I can talk about a bit about context, because I find I use that a bunch here. That's all
Okay,
good.
you're good.
You want,
I got you.
Cody, the best.
We don't have a lot of time, so. Yeah. First concert I attended was actually Neil Young on the Greendale tour. It was pretty great. Followed directly by Rush. Oh, dude! Yeah!
Yeah. Where did you see Neil?
I saw it at the ACC.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. First concert I ever attended was the Smashing Pumpkins at Massey Hall. I think I was 14 years old.
Nice.
And that was a big formative experience.
Oh, no doubt.
Sure. And so another quick modal tuning I want to discuss is DADGAD, which is a bit easier to tune to from standard tuning. You don't have to deal with crazy string gauges like you do with open C, where you just take your E, drop it down to a D, your B to an A, and your high E to a D. And so you have this beautiful kind of like modal D shape, right? And so you can still play, you can still play all of your traditional triad shapes that, we've all practiced and we've all spent a lot of time learning as guitar players. But now you have this beautiful, just suspended shape.
Yeah.
Whammy bars help that beautiful kind of floaty feeling as well. But a lot of our music is using Lydian and Mixolydian modes, right? And so your Mixolydian mode is basically your major scale with that flat 7. And one of the my common chord progression, I'll do a 1 to a flat 7, right? Like, that's instant rock and roll, right? So again, whenever you're finding yourself stuck when you're writing something, you can never go wrong with the 1 to the flat 7.
Yeah.
Ever, I'll let you know when I grow tired of it. I haven't yet. What else? Oh, you're right. I grabbed this guitar to talk about Context, which is one of my favorite songs to play, and that's in DADGAD. And I play that song on a double neck. DADGAD for Kashmir, exactly, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people will learn DADGAD specifically to learn Kashmir, and that's it. That's all they'll ever do. Where it's a shame, because I think DADGAD is such a rich tuning that can afford some really great shapes. Again, so you can do your traditional triads over those, right? Your majors, your minors. But I find just kind of like taking that suspended A shape and not being afraid to move that around, right? And again, I'm just taking that, that A sus shape, moving it up 2 frets so you can get your B. And then obviously, I'll talk about your major and your minor triads there, because obviously you cannot play these giant ringing strings all the time, right? Whereas Kashmir is Jimmy Page, the man, is just shredding all of those strings all the time, and sometimes you can kind of get lost in that sauce when you're trying to write your own music in DADGAD and not have it sound like Kashmir. Mm-hmm. So little triad shape that you can do is, again, you take that A major shape, right, where you're playing the your 3 middle strings. You're doing D, G, and your B string, and you kind of do like an A7, what would traditionally be A7, right? Where you're just going to play any 2 frets on your G and your B, and then the fret below it on your G string, that's your major third. And then if you want a minor shape, you literally just take that third and you just drop it 1 semitone. And so now, let's say, so I'd be like, if I want to play a B minor, which is a relative minor of D major, you take, fret 9 of your D, fret 7 of your G, fret 9 of your B, and that's your minor shape. And again, if you want to get clever with a bigger voicing, you just take that ring finger on your 9th fret and you bar that. And so now you have your traditional minor and major triads within a new wacky tuning. And so it's really not that much different from standard tuning, but it does afford you now, again, that same reason why we all love drop D so much. One finger, huge riffs. And then, it's just, I find it really, really affords, again, like just, it gets your mind in a different place, gets your fingers in a different place, and I'm sure it'll, open up a lot of doors. So again, if you set your guitar up for Dadgad, you don't necessarily want to play Kashmir for the 1000th time. Just, again, jump into those little triad shapes right in the middle of the neck. And again, this leads us to talking about pedal tones. Whereas if I was able to, just play that A, that B minor, and that G, I can just like pedal along on the A. And all of a sudden, you kind of get that feeling again. If there's a bass player there, they'd probably be chugging along on that pedal tone, which again, you're just holding down that root, and then you're playing a few chords over that, and that can allow that kind of like feeling of movement while standing still. And I find like that's something that I use a lot in our music, and it just allows you to fill out rhythm and melody and harmony all at once.
Well, it also lays a great foundation for melody to be played over top, right? To be sung over top.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, that's true.
Mm-hmm. So it really serves the top line.
Yeah. Who writes the lyrics for the band?
We both do. We both do. We just like
it's
come
every
together.
other word.
Yeah, we come together with like poems, and we're just.
Yeah. It's like you just do every other word. There you go. I'm just kidding. We don't do every other word, but a lot of the time, like when you're talking about collaboration, especially, I mean, it's great now that we've approached the ability that we can hang out together without worrying about getting each other sick.
Yeah.
But at the height of the pandemic, we would share the iPhone notes, right?
Yeah.
Where you can just like have the color coded of who's editing stuff, and that was how we wrote most of the lyrics when we couldn't be in a room together. Mm-hmm. And even when we're in a room together, we'll usually just like open up a shared note and just like the thumbs do a lot of the work. Yeah. I think that helps a lot.
I usually like reinterpret like old poems I wrote and put them in like a word bank, and then just kind of make a line, and then you kind of edit it, and then you add a line, and then I edit it, and it's a very
it's
collaborative.
very collaborative when we're writing a song together. And I find like we don't really come to each other with like finished ideas.
No,
it's mostly it's just chaos.
Yeah, because the magic happens when we're both in the room together, and that's when it really comes together.
For sure. Yeah, just like this, right? It's like I think there's something to be said though. Again, like it's not what you do; it's who you do it with. Yeah. And I think I'm very lucky that I found Cody, and so we've been able to do some really really cool stuff over the last few years. Trying to think of. Pretty much. We've made a lot of our dreams come true.
A lot of them.
I mean, we're hanging out at this beautiful studio making a 20-minute epic piece of music right now, and I can't believe we're
dreams do come true.
Dreams do come true.
This is honestly
you work really hard and surround yourself with beautiful people and people that you trust and people that you believe in just as much as they might believe in you.
Yeah, because this is something we believed in since we were kids. Yeah. So it's really surreal, and we're so grateful for all of these opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. What else do I want to talk about for context? Oh God, I could talk about context for like 3 hours. It's one of my favorite songs, and it's such a great thing. There's so many great ideas that I can pull from to talk about, but I mean, I don't know. It's what do you want to hear about context, Cody? What's something that that you would like?
The harmonics section.
All right, so I mean that's fairly simple. I mean like so it's like. So that's a good question. As far as do I ever use octave pedals? I like to emulate bass or just the Taurus pedals. Back in the day, I used to do that, like have the split amp thing and have a POG doing the octave thing. It just was it's been done so well already by so many other duos that I feel like I just felt there was something else that I could kind of go and do and bring my own to the band, and so that's why like I've decided to like use my Taurus pedals to play all my keyboard parts with my feet while I'm playing guitar. Just to avoid sounding like other people, right? You want to kind of end up sounding like yourself. But that being said, again, if you are, if you're interested in starting a band, you don't need to wait to find the right bass player. Or you don't have to wait to find the right guitar player either, right? If you're a bass player or a guitar player, you have an octave pedal, you go up or you go down. You get 2 amps. You can't lose, right? So there's definitely something to be said about, doing the POG thing, doing the split amp thing. I find, like, I still have a POG on my board. I use it more to get kind of like those crazy organ kind of synthy sounds for a few riffs every now and then. Just as like a hello, just like a little, like, little magical moment, but that's it really. I mean, I find the sound can become kind of tired very quickly if you're just doing that, especially when it's like just again one thing, right? And it's like when you're doing like 2 things at once, it allows you to kind of like create something a bit more exciting for the ear, right? Because there's like that collaboration between like multiple instruments creating different things. But again, so yes, like I have messed around with POGs. I highly recommend, if you want to experiment, those, POGs are awesome octave pedals.
Definitely. Yeah.
What else? Right. So
where were we?
Right. I get
the harmonic section.
The harmonic section of context, right?
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing very interesting about that. It's just going.
Sounds cool to me. I
mean. Again, just doing like a 12th, 7th, and then 5th fret harmonics. Really great way to find out if you're out of tune when you're on stage.
And probably a very bad timing.
Yeah, the harmonics never really never lie. What's a fun riff? Again, don't be afraid of embracing scales and then harmonizing them, because like most of the context verses, it's in what, 10? Like
yeah.
So these are, again, like Dadgad, it lets you play just a 3, you're fretting your bottom 3 strings and you're letting all 6 of your strings ring out, and you have this beautiful suspended A and a B. And so something I use a lot in our music would be static harmonies, where you're having those like open strings ringing out, but you're creating kind of a counterpoint movement, right, where the bass is moving up and down and your melody strings are staying the same. And then a pedal tone is the reverse, where you have melody and the bass is staying the same. And so that's something I think is, again, worth experimenting in your own playing. If you're sitting at home and wondering, how can I play a different line that might feel a little bit more exciting to myself? It's like, again, experimenting with counterpoint lines using your guitar, because you have 6 independent strings that could all be their own independent thing. So don't be afraid of having, your bass doing one thing, on your lower strings, your higher strings staying the same, or vice versa. Having that low string kind of chugging. And just experimenting with that. And then it's always good to have someone next to you to be like, that was in that time signature, you should do that again, because that sounds interesting. That is definitely that's kind of like where the magic is truly is like when you can bounce an idea off of somebody and create something new and interesting. And again, like how you can create like open versus closed sounding chords, right? This is an A in Dagad where I'm playing a big suspended chord, and then that's a traditional closed kind of triad sort of sound, right? So you can create all of these different feelings, just how you play that certain chord, right? Whether or and so yeah, Context is one of those songs where I find I'm playing a lot of the same chords in very different ways that end up making it feel maybe like then more than it actually is. And again, it's just about using different voicings of those same chords, where you can have a very closed voicing, very open voicing, you know, kind of a brighter sounding voicing, you know, a bit warmer sounding voicing. So I would say don't be afraid of playing the same thing in a different place on the neck, and also finding, you know, if your third of that chord is now the top part of that chord, maybe then you want to sing the fifth, so that way you have that tighter harmony, and now that's going to inspire a different kind of melody that's going to sit on top. And that's, you know, again, so just I'm trying to think ways to, like, when you're picking up a guitar and you're trying to write music, how do you get away from playing the same, you know, 3 or 4 cowboy chords in the first position, you know? Because, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You can pick up a guitar and you will sound good, but it's like, will you necessarily sound like you know, or you sound the way you want to express yourself? And just, again, thinking of finding those different tools where, you know, modal tunings, open tunings, finding those traditional triad chords in your new tuning, seeing how much more ergonomic it might be, right? Instead of trying to, you know, fight your hands and figuring out all these jazz chords, sometimes just you know, the tuning pegs are part of the instrument. Use them. You can find some really cool stuff. So I'd say we're probably I'd say we're about ready to wrap up. But that being said, I really do want to just open up the floor one last time, see if anyone has specific questions, anything that they'd like clarified, any you know, insider info, you know, like you know, Cody, I'd love to know what deodorant you use. You smoke, right?
That's a secret.
But yeah, but really, you know, anything that anyone would like to know before we wrap up.
Yeah.
When's the last time you got a haircut? I love you guys. Oh, thanks, Tom.
Honestly, I got a haircut like a couple weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Just
Which
a
one?
Little... This one, right here.
Yeah.
Got caught a little bit.
Nice.
I screamed.
Nice. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't think I've had a haircut in years for sure. I spend all my money on haircuts on guitars, so.
Yeah, that's where the haircut budget goes,
Yeah.
as you can see.
Yeah. Talk about budget cuts. Have you guys ever played any Joe Walsh?
Love Joe Walsh. I mean,
I'm a big fan of
great.
Barnstorm, who's Joe Walsh's project after he made James Gang. It's really cool. Pretty much all of the guitar tones are through a Leslie, which is like, that's a huge influence on me.
Yeah, you love Leslie.
I run my guitar through a Leslie every chance I get. Joe Walsh is killer though. I absolutely love his playing. He's one of the best. He's one of the best American guitar players ever, other than Dwayne Allman probably, maybe Mike Campbell too. You know, those are some great. Yeah, like, I could talk about guitar players all day. Thanks for that question, Jeff. Any other last minute questions? You know, we'll probably let you guys go. I know it's been you know, a long session, but again, I really hope that everyone was able to get something out of there of understanding, like, you know, how we've kind of been able to do our thing and get, you know, pretty clever and creative with our little musical world. And so if you ever need any pointers, anyone watching, message us. You know, I'd love to talk more about the music we write and the gear it takes to make it and all the wacky tunings that we use. other than that, I guess that might be it for us this evening. So I hope everyone enjoyed it. I hope everyone's able to get something. And yeah. All right, Cody Bowles.
All right, Kevin Comeau.
I'll see you. I'll see you in the van, I guess.
Yeah, I'll see you soon.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Take care, guys.
Long and McQuaid, where the music begins.